Alright, buddy, hello and welcome to the weekend recap. All things Australian-New Zealand football. Football at the moment, it's in a chaotic state, but that's pretty much what all of our off-seasons look like. Pandemics, transfers, anniversaries, social media, overseas players, domestic players, all that sort of great stuff is coming thick and fast. And just like every other week, there's a whole bunch of different news in and around the football world that we want to recap for you today. Monday, the 16th of November. Not just today's date, but also a tremendous anniversary in terms of the Australian football calendar, and a date that will live long in infamy as far as the football community is concerned. It can be tough to unify soccer Twitter, it can be tough to unify the football community, but everybody was pulling on this day back in 2005. You can see this fantastic photo just over to my left-hand side. For those of you that may have been too young and maybe don't recognise how immense this particular date is, we of course played Uruguay at the time, I think the 5th place South American qualifier. This is back, of course, when Australia was still part of the Oceanic Confederation. Each year the Oceanic Confederation having to play off against one of the sides from South America to get one of those last World Cup places. Australia had a long history of heartbreak when it came to World Cup playoffs, and in and around the 2005 period we were really blessed with what we've referred to as the golden generation of Socceroo talent. Some of the people that you can see on the screen there, like Mark Viduka's there, Jason Kalina, Lucas Neal, Tim Cahill, Harry Kuehl, Vince Grella, Scott Chipperfield, Joseph Skoko, including other subs that were involved on the day, like Luke Wilshere, Mark Bresciano. Mark Schwartz is not even in that photo. John Aloisi not even in that photo. It is, for a lot of reasons, a group that everybody looks back on and says this was the best group of Socceroos players that we had at any one particular time. And the FFA backed them really for the first time in their history by bringing in a high quality coach in Dutchman Gus Hiddink. Aussie Gus, as he became known around that time, he got this team performing incredibly well. He got them to perhaps their highest levels of fitness and performance that we've seen from any Socceroos coach throughout the course of the history of that team, which is a huge statement considering some of the other competitions that we've done really well in. We of course went away in the first leg, played it in Montevideo, lost 1-0 in that game, a 37-minute goal from Dario Rodriguez. In tough conditions, long stories have been told about, fireworks being let off outside the Australian team's hotel. As hostile an atmosphere as any Australian side has ever entered for this particular contest. And while a 1-0 defeat didn't kill us dead in the water, it definitely left us with a huge challenge for the return leg. Played at Stadium Australia, we had potentially one of our strongest ever Socceroos lineups, playing against a very, very talented Uruguay side, which included the likes of Alvaro Recoba, and in the first leg, Diego Forlan, not quite the years of Edison Cavani and Luis Suarez and a bunch of the other Uruguayan players that we know now in the world game, but still an incredibly strong lineup. Our starting 11 in that contest included Mark Schwarzer, Lucas Neal, Tony Popovic, Tony Vidmar, Mark Bresciano, Tim Cahill, Scott Chipperfield, Jason Kalina, Brett Emmerdon, Vince Grella, and of course the captain, Mark Viduka. A long litany of players that would be like first ballot Hall of Famers if there ever was a Socceroos Hall of Fame, and maybe that's something that we'll do on the channel over the next couple of days, weeks and months. Sub appearances in that game as well from Josip Skoko in extra time, Harry Kuehl, John Aloisi of course, you'll see a lot of photos of him in the next few weeks. Mark Bresciano with a 35th minute equaliser, probably the biggest goal scored in Australian football history. The highlights of that ball hitting the back of the net and watching Stadium Australia just explode are some of the most vivid memories of green and gold that I think you're going to see for any of our international sides across any code. Both sides had huge opportunities throughout the course of the game. We had excellent opportunities in the first half. Uruguay came into it as the game neared the 90th minute, and extra time really could have gone either way as well. You will see a lot of highlights and a lot of videos of John Aloisi whipping his shirt off and whipping it around his head and taking that penalty, but mark my words, Mark Schwarzer was the true hero of the 2005 playoff. He was absolutely immense in some of the saves that he made throughout the course of that competition. He was immense in the penalty shootout as well. Mark Schwarzer, secret hero, or at least unrecognised hero, doesn't get the credit that he deserves in terms of how immense he was in this particular fixture. The game went to penalties. Harry Kuehl stepped up, scored his penalty. Lucas Neal, Tony Vidmar, and Mark Viduka missing the first 4. Uruguay missing 2 of their first 4, and up stepped John Aloisi to take that 5th and final penalty to see us eventually win 4-2 via the penalty shootout. The most dramatic way to potentially secure our first World Cup appearance in 32 years at the time, but one of the most joyous days in the Australian football history. We of course moved on to join the Asian Confederation. We qualify with perhaps a little bit less fanfare now, usually topping or getting in second spot in those qualification groups. Thankfully we have left behind the days of having to do those incredibly difficult 2-leg playoff series. We know New Zealand are currently doing it at the moment. They're experiencing the same difficulty, having lost to Peru in the most recent World Cup qualifying campaign, but a day that I think a lot of people are going to look back on incredibly fondly. Perhaps, even though it's not a trophy win, one of the brightest moments in the history of the sport in this country. And 15 years, I'm an old man. I don't know how the time has passed that quickly. Hopefully you all have fond memories as well, looking back on that particular time in our history as well. Heading on to our second headline, Macarthur FC. Now, a couple of weeks ago on this exact channel, in this exact series, we gave Macarthur a little bit of grief because we didn't think they were doing their best in terms of their social media following, their social media presence, updating their fan base about what was coming up for the club itself. But we have to give them a ton of credit. They've actually done a really fantastic job over the last week or so, really picking up the intensity of their posts, some of the different things that they're trying. During this most recent weekend, their first fan day at Campbelltown Stadium, they played two local sides. They played a combined 11 from Macarthur Football Association, effectively a representative team. They played 45 minutes against them. They also played 45 minutes against Bankstown Football Association, two local football associations that they're trying. Two local football associations they're obviously trying to create development ties with, that they're obviously trying to connect with the fan bases of those particular groups, really signaling their intent to be involved heavily within the Macarthur region and within Campbelltown itself. And they did a great job. They went through, they put in all of their chances, they put in all of their goals, they did a great job live tweeting those games and the results. Throughout the course of the week, they had a good 2-0 victory against Bankstown in the first 45 minutes. A 0-0 draw in the second isn't anything to be sneezed at. Macarthur obviously had a regular season in New South Wales this season, so they're coming off a full-length year. Macarthur, of course, working their way into full fitness, and it was a highly rotated second 45-minute squad that went through. The big one, the interesting one, is they've got a game coming up this Tuesday night, which you can also watch on their Facebook page. Huge credit to them on their social media channels, having it available for people to watch on Facebook to see their maybe really first broadcast exposure to the team itself against the Olyroos. The Olyroos, of course, played Sydney FC last week where they lost 3-0. It'll be interesting to see how they improve after a few additional days in the camp and to work on the things that they didn't particularly do well against Sydney FC. And then also to look at Macarthur and see how would we measure them against Sydney FC and their potential for the season ahead. If they go out and win 5-0 against effectively the same lineup, we may look at them and say this is a stronger lineup than perhaps we were initially thinking. If they go out and struggle, maybe they've got teething problems, maybe we don't necessarily think that they're going to hit top form in round one of the A-League season, but it's a long year, a lot of football to be played. But fantastic credit to them, they're doing some wonderful stuff. You can see they posted their lineups and stuff for the different games and the different halves, started getting more information out there on the website about their stadium, and you can see it looking absolutely fantastic on the day. They're starting to get more images out there about the players and the key players. Mark Milligan, their inaugural captain, Adam Federici, who I think is going to be magnificent in the A-League this season, Matt Derbyshire, introducing him to a new set of fans. They've signed Benyat Exjaberia. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. By all means, let me know in the comment section below the appropriate way to say that. Hopefully, Markel Susueta also joining in the next few weeks. They are putting the finishing touches on a fantastic squad, and hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks they can start capturing hearts and minds in and around the Campbelltown area, and a lot of those people that maybe are umming and about joining the club, getting a membership due to the expense, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully they can put on a fantastic social media experience and a fantastic match day experience to get more bums in seats this season. And in our main story, in FAWSL action in the Women's Super League over in England, two of our Matildas came directly head-to-head. You can see them just up on the screen now, Alana Kennedy and Chloe Ledgazzo. Most of the time on an international weekend or break, they are very close teammates. Both been involved at Sydney FC in recent seasons in the W League itself. Now both, of course, making the jump over to WASL football. And it must be said, it was a cracking game. Both sides not doing particularly well, sitting in 11th and 12th in the division itself this season, but Bristol City aren't a terrible team. They've had some unlucky results, and they're only really one win away from getting out of those relegation places. They do have a game in hand on a couple of the sides that they're chasing as well. It ended 2-2, Chloe Ledgazzo getting the opening goal. Fantastic to see our Matildas scoring in that competition and doing incredibly well. We were this close to getting 3 Matildas on the field at one point. Ella Mastro Antonio was an unused substitute for Bristol City, potentially driven by the fact that Tottenham actually went down to 10 players. A player that came on at halftime on 77 minutes got sent off for a straight red card. It really created quite a challenge for Tottenham to try and defend their lead. Alana Kennedy played the full 90 minutes. It took until the 92nd minute, the second minute of injury time, for Bristol to make their possession advantage count, playing against 10 players. A fantastic equalising goal for them, making it 2-2. That wasn't the end of the drama. Eventually, I think the game went to like 98 minutes, 8 minutes of additional time. Alana Kennedy had a fantastic opportunity to potentially find a winning goal for 10-player Tottenham, but it just sailed beyond the far post from a free kick. A decent header, a decent performance, a cracking game. It had something for everybody, and always fantastic to see our Matildas performing in arguably the best women's football league in the world itself. A closer look at the table as well in the WSL also shows that our Matildas are doing quite well across the division. Arsenal women have a game in hand in second place on Manchester United, who are in top spot. Potentially Australian coach Joe Montemuro. Matilda's Steph Catley and Lydia Williams involved in that squad. A lot of players that have been in and around the W League before, like Kim Little, Jem Beatty, a few others in that Arsenal lineup. If they win that game, they will potentially go top of the table and lead a chasing pack that includes Hayley Rasso's Everton, Sam Kerr's Chelsea. West Ham, which includes Emily Van Egmond, are further down the table but are starting to win their first games. Fantastic to see so many of our Matildas over there and thriving in that competition. It bodes well, not just for the W League season and the young players that I think are going to step up and replace some of those big names, but also getting them involved in elite level competitions ahead of the 2023 World Cup is absolutely huge for our chances. And if they all perform well, which they are so far, hopefully it opens the door for a lot more of our talented youngsters to be heading over to England and getting more playing opportunities. We spoke about in our first headline the amount of players that we had in that Socceroos lineup playing international football. We are getting to the point as well where we could get Matildas lineups and full Matildas squads that are represented by players playing over in European leagues or North American leagues or wherever internationally it may be, which is fantastic for the development of the game, fantastic for the development of our players. It's something that we, of course, love to see. And of course, as always, there are a variety of fantastic articles available on thereserveteam.com.au. This week we've got fantastic content from a variety of our key collaborators and contributors. Wonderful analysis of the A-League's average ages by Nick Gerber. If you don't follow Nick already over on Twitter, if you haven't checked out his articles on the reserve team, go and do it. I think statistically, the analysis that he provides is as good as I've seen in any of the larger media conglomerates, some of the big channels, some of the bigger websites. The stuff that he puts out, the graphics that he creates are absolutely fantastic. He went through the PFA document, which we spoke about on this show a couple of weeks ago, outlining the differences between playing time pre and post-COVID. There is some fantastic stuff on there, and definitely any stats boffins that happen to be watching and want to be checking it out, go and see that article. Fantastic contribution from Kelly Simpson as well. Everything I know about life I learned from football, charting her experiences at a community level in the game, how that's changed her life and her world, and how football continues to have a positive impact. And of course, we're developing a very good library of fantastic content from all of our contributors across that space. Make sure it is the first place that you go and check out for all of your information relating to Australian and New Zealand football. And of course, links to the channel, links to all those articles will be found in the description below. You can also keep an eye on this YouTube channel to keep up to date on your media content. We've of course got podcasts coming up. We've got a whole bunch of season previews for different A-League sides starting this week, tomorrow with Sydney FC. We've got tier lists. We've got more weekend recaps. We've got fantastic stuff we want to collaborate with from some of the Ladies League crew. There's a bunch of huge stuff coming up on this channel. And if you want to be kept up to date with it, you can subscribe to the channel to see all of our future videos as they continue to release. You can also drop a like on this video to help us get higher in search results when people look for Australian and New Zealand football media. Just helps us grow the community, helps us grow some of the fantastic discussions that we're already having with you guys in the comment section below and over on Twitter. But more than anything, we just appreciate you guys watching and coming along for the ride. That's the part that means the most to us. From myself, from all the collaborators over at theserveteam.com.au, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all again next time.